What's going on, y'all? It's your girl, Mary B. Welcome back to another episode of Something's Gotta Give. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my experiences with limerence. If you're not aware of what that term means, it's essentially a fantasized relationship. Now, I have had my fair share of romantic endeavors throughout my 20s, and unfortunately, I've never been fruitful at love. And it's very easy to point fingers at your partner and say, hey, you're doing this, that, and the third wrong, which is why we're not working out. But after numerous failed attempts at love, I had to point at myself in the mirror and realize how I was showing up in a certain manner and why that wasn't beneficial to any relationship that I had been in. And also realize that I wasn't being the ideal partner that I always thought I would be when it came to me actually being committed to somebody. Now, specifically, my experiences with limerence happened when I would be in talking stages with new prospects. That's funny. I'm calling them prospects. New men that I would meet and I would be super excited about talking to. And why limerence happened with people in talking stages is essentially the relationship was never able to blossom. And so I had enough space between me and that person to create a fantasized version of what that relationship could be. And so I found myself quickly making up scenarios of what my life could be like with somebody when that prospect checked all of the boxes I had for what I assumed my husband would be like. And what I found myself doing was I was finding men who were reflecting back to me a version of myself that I didn't know how to become. So I like partners who are very indulged in work, are very busy, they have their life together essentially, they're very reliable and they're very responsible and they're also very successful. I also found myself being attracted to people who had notoriety. Like they might not be the most popular person in the world, but where they operated, they were very respected and they were very sought out too for guidance in whatever manner. Whether that be someone who really knew how to be the head of a household when it came to family, or if they were someone who really was high ranking in their job, or just was the lead of the group when it came to their friend circle. I really was attracted to those type of men, and I realized I was attracted to that type of person because I wanted to be that. Sometimes when we don't feel fulfilled in what we desire for us to be, we find that in other people. And I found myself doing that. Specifically, when I found myself being super excited about finding a version of myself in a man that I hadn't learned how to become for myself, I would automatically start planning our future. I would automatically start falling head over heels for this person, and I would be so excited for the next time I would see them, or when we're going on dates, or just the freaking phone call. I would be literally so giddy, like, oh my gosh, he's calling me right now. I would think about that person from day till dawn, and I don't even really know this person. How am I able to just get so attached to a being that I hardly even know? And I never really understood it, but I never really questioned it, because I feel like a lot of us kind of go into these fantasy spaces and kind of just create something before it even really comes to fruition. And I found myself really scaring partners away by doing that, because nobody likes somebody that's too pressed, right? I'm not even appearing to be unavailable. I'm too available, and nobody likes anything that's too available. So I had to learn that the hard way. I also learned that the reason why I was able to create such fantasy worlds of what a relationship could be like in talking stages with men is because everything goes back to your childhood, right? When I was growing up, I had a lot of space between whoever was playing parent at that point in time of my life. And I had to make reason as to why there was such absence with every parent that I had. And so with the amount of space that I was given to be by myself, I had to create reason as to why my parent has to work so much, or they're not able to talk to me, or they're not able to hang out with me, or they're not able to take me to my sporting games or my choir shows or my cheerleading rehearsals. I had to do that to feel like I was able to be loved, to feel like there was sense for why I was spending so much time by myself, why I was alone most of the time growing up. And everything that you learn about relationships in your childhood does transfer over to the relationships that you carry in your adulthood. And so I had a wild imagination growing up. I had a lot of time to sit by myself. And so anytime that I'm giving space and I don't really know what's going on with that space, and in talking stages, you can't be too, or you're not supposed to be too straightforward and just ask for information and ask for somebody's entire schedule. It's not realistic. You should be able to have enough trust within yourself and be solid within yourself to be able to deal with space when you're not talking to your partner. That's something I really struggle with. I struggle with space. I struggle with absence. And when I had that present, I had to create stories. I had to create stories. It was the only way I was able to get through my childhood. But what I did in my childhood was not helping me whatsoever when it came to my romantic endeavors in my childhood. And yes, I was anxious in my romantic relationships when we did get past the talking stage, but sometimes I would scare people away just during my talking stages because I was so unable to just be still and to just let things flow. What I associated just by letting things grow meant someone was disappearing from me again. And I can't have that. Why does everybody want to leave me? That's something that I always ask. It's something that my inner child always says to me, like, everybody leaves you, everybody leaves you, everybody leaves you. The truth is, life has its seasons. And unfortunately, I did experience a lot of abandonment in my childhood. But I'm an adult now. That happened, and I might be a little bit too familiar with abandonment, but I don't need to put those like fears and past predicaments onto someone I just met. It just doesn't make sense. And so knowing that and knowing where that came from, I have now been able to just take a chill pill and realize, number one, I'm really liking partners because I haven't necessarily figured out how to be that for myself yet. So I had to learn how to really show up for myself and show up as that version of myself, not trying to find someone else who can do that for me. I was looking outside of myself, and that's never the answer. And secondly, I had to catch myself when I found myself being scared that little Mary was going to be abandoned again. And it doesn't matter if a man that I'm talking to does end up leaving because we don't work out. I'll always be secure in myself, and having that relationship that I've curated within myself has allowed me to be so at peace and has allowed me to show up with new prospects in a way healthier manner than I ever have before. I also had to really be honest with myself and realize both my mother and my father introduced abandonment to me, and they were my first core relationships, and I had to do a lot of healing with my parents in order to ever have an opportunity to really have a good, healthy relationship. And I didn't have the opportunity to connect with my mother and to reestablish our relationship. It was the healthiest option for me to no longer have a relationship with her, but that still is creating a bond with my inner child, knowing that I made the right decision that is best for my mental health. Now with my father, I was able to have conversations with him and tell him how his past versions of him were people that I was falling for. So for example, like even when my dad was around those few times, he wasn't someone that was honest. He wasn't someone that was reliable. And he was someone that was dealing with a lot of illegal activities. He was not walking as a ideal, honorable man. And so I found myself really having crushes on gangsters, people who were in the streets, people who had to sell drugs on the side just to get by, people who don't believe in working a job simply because they felt like they were too good to, or they felt like there's better ways of making money. Not better, let's say easier ways of making money. I found myself liking people who I never really thought I would like. And I had to realize, like, oh, I'm kind of just liking the version of my father that I learned when I was a little girl in my romantic endeavors now. And I really had to address that. And I had to really catch myself when I find myself making up reasons as to why somebody's not being around or being truthful or giving me too much space. Like, I would have to, then again, whether the person was ideal or the person wasn't ideal and they were kind of like not such a great person, like I just would create a fantasy world. Fantasy worlds were my escapism as a child to get by. And it was something that I still escaped to in my adulthood to get by and to make reason. And a part of me just felt like I have to be married. I have to be in a relationship to be successful, right? That's what success is sold to us growing up. Like, you gotta be married and you gotta have a husband and he's gotta be, able to provide. And I just thought I was gonna have that life with a picket fence. And I had to realize, like, fairy tales can be real, but are you even the type of person who can actually hold on to the fairy tale if it is presented to me? And with the amount of insecurities and abandonment issues I had, I was not the person who could hold on to that type of relationship, that type of bond. But I can say now I am. I can say now I know to never look outside of me for anything. I know to never rely on somebody else to make me happy. That is a self job. I know to never rely on anybody to give me my lifestyle that I desire. That is my self job. That is a me job. I just think that if you are not whole, when you go to somebody else looking to complete you, you'll be that more empty when they fail. And I don't even want someone to have that much baggage that they had to carry because of me. That's very selfish. I don't think it's fair to be selfish in relationships. I feel like it's healthier to just have a bond with somebody, a real deep bond. And a bond comes from being secure within yourself and choosing to create a bond with somebody else and having agreeances in what that bond is. So I can confidently say I'll never find myself in a limerence situation again. Now that I'm able to see clearly, Lord, that just really cleared out the dating pool. I no longer deal with nonsense. I no longer deal with headaches. I no longer deal with what ifs and trying to create reason as to why so-and-so is acting in such a way. I'm able to be honest with myself, and I'm able to call out BS when I see it. And I'm able to also know that I get to choose what I deal with and what I don't deal with. I'm not a child, and I don't have to feel like I don't have the voice to say no simply because I'm not of age yet. I'm no longer there. I'm here. I know better. So what? I'll do better. Yeah. So if you resonated with this, you're not the only person who deals with limerence. There's many people of us who just create because sometimes the truth is just that horrifying. The truth within you is that horrifying. Until you face it, you can face it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Until next time, bye.